Have you ever stood in front of a grocery store shelf, looked at a tub of cottage cheese and thought, how does something so simple come from something as vast and complex as the American dairy industry? It seems basic, just curds and cream, right? But behind that creamy scoop is a process involving millions of cows, billions of gallons of milk, and a symphony of machines, bacteria, and precision timing. What if I told you that the cottage cheese on your spoon was made using methods designed as far back as the 1800s, but perfected in factories only recently? Let's go deeper. How does a Holstein cow in Wisconsin or a Jersey cow in California end up contributing to the exact texture and taste of cottage cheese you eat today? And why is it one of the few cheeses where washing, not aging, is the secret? By the end of this video, you won't just know how it's made, you'll understand why it has to be made that way and what it takes to deliver freshness at scale. Stick around, because the journey from cow to curd is full of revelations. We begin where it all starts on massive US dairy farms. Today, about 9 million dairy cows produce over 26 billion gallons of milk every year. That's enough to fill over 40,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. But how is all that milk produced consistently and safely? It starts with the cows themselves. Most of the milk comes from Holsteins, those black and white giants you've probably seen in farm photos. Why them? Well, they produce more milk than any other breed, sometimes over 9 gallons a day, and that's per cow. But there's a secret to why they can give so much milk. It's their diet. Dairy cows are fed a total mixed ration, a precisely engineered blend of hay, fermented silage, grains, soybean meal, and even leftover brewery grains. It's like a protein-packed smoothie for cows. Each bite gives them everything they need to produce milk efficiently, and farmers use GPS sensors and tractors with built-in computers to make sure it's mixed perfectly. That means the milk you're drinking, or the curds in your cottage cheese, started with a data-driven cow diet. But even with great food, you can't make great milk without getting it out cleanly, quickly, and constantly. Modern milking technology is a game-changer. Cows are milked 2 to 3 times a day in high-tech parlors. Some farms even use robotic systems, where cows choose when they want to be milked. Think of it as a self-serve milk station with lasers, sensors, and treats. But here's what most people don't know. The milk leaves the cow at about 101 degrees Fahrenheit, 38.5 degrees centigrade. That's warm. So how does it stay fresh before it even leaves the farm? The answer: instant chilling. As soon as it's milked, the milk travels through refrigerated steel pipes and lands in bulk cooling tanks, dropping the temperature to about 36 degrees Fahrenheit, 2.5 degrees centigrade in under 30 minutes. That's colder than your fridge, and it's done before the milk is even touched by human hands. So now we've got clean, cold milk collected in massive tanks. But how does it become cheese? Specifically, the jiggly, mild-tasting curds of cottage cheese. That's the next piece of the puzzle. Once the chilled milk leaves the farm, it travels by insulated tanker trucks to a cheese production facility, usually within 24 hours. At the factory, the milk is tested again, pasteurized and stored in massive stainless steel silos. But here's a surprise. Not all the milk becomes cheese in the same way. For cottage cheese, the process is unique among cheeses. It doesn't get aged, pressed, or molded like cheddar or Swiss. Instead, it goes through something that feels more like cooking a soup than aging a wheel. So what exactly happens to milk inside a cottage cheese factory? The process starts with pasteurization, where the milk is heated briefly to kill harmful bacteria, but just enough to leave the proteins intact. Then, in large cheese vats, workers add lactic acid bacteria, a starter culture that kicks off fermentation. These tiny organisms feast on the milk's natural sugar, lactose, and produce acid, lowering the pH and causing the milk to curdle naturally. Slowly, over several hours, the liquid transforms into a soft, jiggly curd, almost like tofu or custard. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. Some producers add a small amount of rennet, an enzyme that helps firm up the curd structure. That decision alone can determine whether you get small curd or large curd cottage cheese. But we're not done yet. If you've ever wondered why cottage cheese is slightly tangy but not sharp like aged cheese, it's because of the next unexpected step. Once the curd is set, it's time to cut it. Using giant stainless steel wires, the curd mass is sliced into small cubes. These cubes begin to leak out whey, the yellowish, watery part of milk most people don't notice unless they're draining yogurt. Then comes one of the most crucial steps in defining cottage cheese. The curd is cooked. That's right, those curds are gently heated, slowly raised to about 130 degrees Fahrenheit, 54.5 degrees centigrade while being stirred. This shrinks them, firms them up, and pushes out even more whey. And then, perhaps the most surprising part. They're washed. Yes, unlike almost every other cheese, cottage cheese curds are washed multiple times in cold water. Why? To stop the fermentation, to cool them quickly, and most importantly, to remove the excess acid and lactose. That's why cottage cheese tastes mild instead of sour, and why the curds stay separate and bouncy, not sticky or rubbery. After washing, the curds are drained thoroughly and mixed with a special cream dressing, a blend of milk fat and salt that brings back richness and flavor. This final touch gives cottage cheese its creamy texture without aging or pressing. The whole process, from pouring milk into the vat to packaging, takes less than a day. And every batch is tested, chilled, sealed, and shipped fresh, often reaching store shelves within 48 hours. So now we've followed milk from cow to cold curd, seen the science behind fermentation and firming, and even learned why washing makes all the difference. But there's still one final question. Why go through all this effort for a cheese that doesn't age, doesn't slice, and doesn't smell? Because cottage cheese fills a unique role as a bridge between fresh dairy and hearty protein. It's old school and modern, humble and high-tech, and its creation represents one of the most finely tuned balances of farming, science, and flavor engineering in the dairy world. To understand cottage cheese is to understand two parallel systems working in harmony. The vast dairy farms powered by biology, nutrition, and data, and the cheese factories guided by microbiology, precision engineering, and food safety protocols. Each spoonful of cottage cheese represents the quiet, powerful rhythm of American agriculture and innovation. The steady heartbeat of cows on a feeding cycle, the hum of rotary milking machines, the silent activity of bacteria transforming sugar into acid, and the cold rush of water washing curds into perfect bite-sized textures. But here's something most people don't realize. While cottage cheese may feel like a simple food, its creation requires more steps, more precision, and more real-time decision-making than most aged cheeses. Why? Unlike aged cheese, which hides behind time, cottage cheese must be perfect the moment it's made. There's no room for covering mistakes. It's fresh or it's not. It's clean or it's spoiled. Every step must land just right. And that's the full picture. It starts on the farm with engineered cow diets and milking tech so advanced, some cows milk themselves with robots. It continues with instant cooling, sanitary transport, and daily processing to maintain freshness. Then inside factories, curds are born through fermentation, sliced, cooked, washed, and lovingly coated in cream, all within hours. Put simply, cottage cheese is a race against time. A delicate dance of temperature, chemistry, and craftsmanship that begins with the moo of a cow and ends in your fridge. And it's done millions of times a day across the United States, often without us ever noticing. So, next time you open a container of cottage cheese, you'll see more than just curds and whey. You'll see the invisible machinery of an entire system working in real time to deliver freshness, nutrition, and taste. But this raises another question. If cottage cheese is so unique, how does it compare to cheeses that take months or even years to make? What changes in the process when we shift from something fresh and delicate to something firm, sharp, and aged like cheddar or parmesan? Well, the answer might surprise you, and it involves mold, caves, and some aging rooms that look more like wine cellars than kitchens. Join us for our next dive into the world of aged cheeses, where time becomes the main ingredient and where flavor takes a much longer path to perfection. Your support helps us to keep exploring and uncovering the hidden side of what we eat. Because once you understand cottage cheese, you've only opened the first door of the cheese world. There's a whole fermented universe still to explore. And trust me, it only gets curdier from here. So don't be shy, hit that subscribe button, and age like a fine cheese. Thank you for watching.